All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. If you've not this already, please give video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts, analysis, and live day trading. Anyways, let's get into it today. So markets here, really asleep. So very, very sleepy. So take a look here. Down move, little gap down open. Little micro bear flag, and we actually got follow through for once. So I was a little shocked this morning to see that kind of continuation down in this environment. And the volume is going to get lighter and lighter as the week goes on here. Take a look at the Dow, right? Just a 10-minute inside bar the entire day. I think the only time I've ever seen that was like literally on Black Friday, which was later this week. But pretty remarkable how tight the range is, $1.50 range on the spiders. So we are in sleep mode right now. Obviously, the big story will be Nvidia earnings. We had the Fed minutes, nothing burger, and the 2-year auction was also a bit of the nothing burger. Although the 2-year did catch a bid, but it's not like the market's moved that much. But Nvidia earnings will be the fulcrum of the market here. You can see some hedges went on. It looks like some calls being sold most likely, and then we kind of floated up into the end of the day. They report at 4:20, so I won't be covering it. Which way is it going to go? I honestly don't know. I mean, nobody really does here. If we look at the chart, it's basically at the all-time high right now, at the double top there. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Their earnings are probably going to crush it. I'm sure they will. It's just a matter of, is this trade so crowded that it's priced in at this point? Additionally, if I had to guess, I don't think we're going to see a giant move here. The last reaction was pretty muted. The previous one before that was obviously the big one that, broke the internet, basically broke the market. But at this point, market makers seem to be pretty well hedged here. They're not looking for a repeat of this. Even stocks like Broadcom had big moves. AMD, a lot of sympathy players, like they're not trying to get hit, they're not trying to get hit for 20% again on a $1 trillion company. So I think these earnings reactions to Nvidia are going to be a little bit more and more muted as we go down the line, there's nobody sneaking up. Nvidia's not going to sneak up on us anymore, essentially, is what I'm saying. But as far as direction, I don't know. I think they're hedged to 400 and 600, which gives us really no clue here. It could just be a theta burn again, which that's kind of where I'm leaning. Maybe a little bit of a positive reaction, but then kind of a theta burn. But again, it could go either way, and I'm not really one to make predictions on earnings. It's the only thing I've seen that can completely negate technicals in seconds. So obviously, if Nvidia has positive reaction, that's going to help the market out. Triple Qs, we talked about this, kind of this 397 area going back to 2021. And again, this is a supply zone, but we have consolidated, so we did build juice to push up in there. Really, it's easier for me to go off of the SPX or the SPY, since this still has local levels that we can trade off of, whereas the Qs is more of a closer to a blue sky breakout per se. But again, you're going to see here we went into this trend line and we're getting a little pullback. So charts are working out very well. Now, again, we're getting a pullback here intraday. There's nothing to say if Nvidia doesn't crush, we don't push up. Where's the next level? There it is, gap fill. Right there, and again, that could be a pierce of the trend line. Doesn't mean we can't close above it and then retrace. But right now, we're not looking for big moves here. Market is very. It's gonna be even worse tomorrow. I think the spiders are at like 40 million shares. Yeah, 41 million shares, and markets are closing in 10 minutes. So markets are asleep. Don't expect too many big moves. Especially if you're going to look to short intraday, it's very tough. There was a really nice pattern. We talked about this in the trading room. I said, look at this beautiful inside bar on the semis. I said, if it wasn't for the holiday period, I would short this. You can see it push down, went to double bottom, and then just floated back up, right? So very tough to get any trades off in here, especially on the sell side. But in any case, there's your gap fill if we do push through that trend line. For right now, that is resistance, and we're just going to give the market the benefit of the doubt. Tomorrow will be very quiet. And again, Nvidia earnings will kind of dictate what happens. And Friday will just be, for the most part, a throwaway session, most likely, unless we get geopolitical news. Russell 2000 continuing to pull back, so that was down 1.25. Probably wants to go down and fill that gap. This pattern's not terrible, though. If this can consolidate more, Maybe if we get the market to pull back, and this just kind of builds a base here, I think this can have a nice push into the end of the year. So RWM looks a lot better. Need to see more consolidation, but that daily pattern is shaping up okay. The Dow is also okay, although it is very stretched overbought, just like everything else going into this area where we gapped down and broke down. So that may need to do some backing and filling if it's going to have another leg up. Semiconductors were pretty much the weakest sector that I could see all day. I don't think anything is down as much as SMH is off the top of my head here, but down 1.5. Again, you could chalk that up to potentially just hedging ahead of Nvidia. But in any case, down 1.5. If we do start to come in, if Nvidia misses and we do start to come in, there's a gap fill right here, and then your big level is 150. So that'll be back testing this yellow trend line. You got those moving averages down there as well. I believe just by eyeballing it looks like a 50% fib. Yep, there you go. So 50% fib right there. And that's, again, if Nvidia misses or do something the market doesn't like, and I'm sure they're not going to miss, but if it's a sell the news rather, those are the levels I'd be watching on the SMH there. And then for Nvidia, I suppose 475, 450, and then a lot of support at 425 there. All right, IGV here again backing off just like everything else. Nothing doing though. Up move into this level we talked about right there, and that's where it's stalling out. So I would expect that to be resistance here in the short term. Again, did weekly consolidation, so you got a nice move, but I mean, hell, this is up from 327 to 378 again in like 3 weeks. So big move there. And you guys know my thoughts on the market. I think we need to digest this at some point soon. It's just very tough that we're in the holiday period. It's tough for any sort of sellers to get momentum when participation is this low. Dow Transports here up 17 basis points. Nothing terrible. This reminds me of the Russell. I like this pattern. If it can put it, I told you yesterday I like it too. If this can base, I think this can push to 15.6. That'd be kind of your next big level, but you got a lot of supply to chew through first. So just be aware of that. But pattern-wise, that is just fine. All right, let's take a look at the 2-year. So we did have an auction today, 10 tips and 2-year notes. Nothing really doing. You wouldn't even know there was an auction if you didn't look at the intraday. You can see down move here in the yield. Kind of pattern is that? Inside bar. Below the moving averages now. So I think the 2-year wants 4.6. Until proven otherwise, you get above this red bar on a closing basis, then the 2-year is going to take off. But right now, that's what the pattern suggests. So I'm thinking the short end is going to come in here. 5-year, same kind of look, although it's a little bit weaker than the 2-year. I'd say this pattern's even better. You got that lower low there. And that can get down to 4.2, maybe 4.1. But right now, a little bit of weakness there. Now the 10s. So the 10 I actually think is stronger. So there's your pivot high. We're very close. 100 MA. This is kind of like max downside here in the short term. I think we need a bounce here. And if you're going to break that, you're going to have to put in another lower high. Same thing with the 30-year, getting kind of close to support there, right? So pivot high, 100 MA, same kind of chart, right? So not as much downside in the long end as the short end from what I can see here. But, interest rates just hanging in there. They may have one more little dip. And then we'll evaluate them when we get to those levels. All right, XHB. So that's actually down 1%. So pretty good move down. But I mean, on the charts, it's nothing. Again, good pattern here, but still overbought. Still need to let these moving averages catch up. It did come up on very high, heavy volume. So that's your positive there for the XHB. Again, I just think it's overbought here. It needs to do some backing and filling. If you close below this green bar low, it would be a big negative. And then it's probably going to go back to 78. VNQ. So that was down 70 basis points. Again, not a terrible pattern here. So some of these kind of areas are playing catch up, right? Notice VNQ, Dow Jones Transports, Russell 2000. We'll look at fins in a second that have a similar pattern set up. But not a bad, inside bar on the daily. Above the 20, above the 50, just below the 100. But you got supply to eat through. So I think it needs to do more of it. And if it does, you can get up to that 200 moving average before you run into a major resistance level. XLF. Down 4 pennies. Again, I think the XLF is a little extended. So this one's a little bit different. I don't really like looking at the XLF. You got Berkshire in there that skews the whole thing. I like KBWB because that's really just a bank index ETF. And again, stalling out at the 200. but there's plenty of room for a higher low. If we look at KRE, there's plenty of room for a higher low. These patterns aren't terrible. And if they can continue to firm up, the banks can go higher. That's really that simple. So, you know, at the end of year, KBE pulling back as well. As long as it holds that inside bar, the pattern's okay. Broker dealers down 0.5% here. Nothing terrible there. Nice inside bar, right? Up move, right angle. If it does more, the 20 MA catches up, it's going to 5. If it gets through 5, it's to 510, and then the all-time high measured move there. All right, oil here. So that is flat right now. So it's holding up though. So we hit the 200 and we're not rejecting, right? So we're just kind of hanging in there. So it'd be bearish if we got a nice rejection there, but it's holding up. So I'll give it the upside bias to 80. That's really all I've got in the cards for it right now. We'll kind of evaluate it from there. I'm neutral on it. I still think this can get down into the upper 60s. If it does, I'd evaluate that for a long. But right now, we'll just say 80 bucks is your near-term target, and I'm not even sure if it gets there. That's just kind of an upside, like max upside here in the short run. All right. Anyways, XLE, kind of a nothing burger here, down 17 cents. Just leave the chart alone, honestly. If you're above 85.50, then it can go to 87.75. We'll say that's really all I've got. If you break 82, it's going lower. XOP, same thing. So, you know, if you get above this pivot, you can go to 147.50. If you lose this, then it's down to 127 to 130. All right, OIH here. A little bit of a sloppier chart as well. Again, we lose this pivot, especially on a weekly close. That opens the door for 300 and then, you know, 290, 280 area. But again, you guys know I like the pattern very much on the monthly. This is fine if it consolidates. It's going to 450 and then maybe even 500. Uranium here. So a little bit of a reaction there for CCJ, down 1 1/4. Could be a little reaction candle. In a quiet market too. So seeing a little bit of selling there. Again, we pierced the 45 handle. We got up to 45.83. We'll see where it closes the week, right? So if it closes the week below 45, and more importantly the month, then, you know, maybe this move is finally stalling out. I'm not going to predict that because every time I think it needs to pull back, it goes higher. But in any case, and again, I talk about a crowded trade. You know, we were talking about Nvidia earlier. This one's very crowded too, but for good reason. But in any case, no real problems. URNM pulling back off that micro double top. Again, I would have liked this better if it did like 2 more weeks of consolidation. But again, it's holding up, and this can still go to the previous double top up there. Market's closing right now. Nvidia does not report till about 4:20, so I won't be able to cover that. Again, I would assume it's going to be a theta burn reaction, but we'll see. All right, nat gas here pulling back. That is into the trend line there. I think this has a little bit of downside. Inventories will be tomorrow, not Thursday. So if you guys are gas traders, be aware of that. But this is the level here, and I think this is into really good support right now. On the daily and weekly too. So that inside bar pattern is still set up there, and we'll see how that trades out into tomorrow. It's again pretty beat up over the last couple of weeks ahead of that inventory number. Dollar index here, so finishing at 103.60. We talked about the 103, 103.50 area. We didn't quite get to 103, but it's bouncing. Could it still get down there? It sure could, right? So it's a holiday week. They're going to try and float this market up. They might take the dollar down, but you have a pretty good tail candle there. I don't know if that's enough to cement a low. We'll have to wait and see, but it is into a buy zone, right? So I'm not saying it's a buy, but it's a demand zone, right? Pivot high, 200 MA. We're getting the pierce of that right now, and it's getting defended. So we'll leave it at that. Next area is 104.40. You get above these pivots here, it's to 105. And then, you know, up to this red bar there, 105.70. Those are the levels on the Dixie. But again, getting the micro bounce there. And again, markets are, you know, pulling back in as expected. Gold here. So gold was up even with the weak dollar. So nice outside bid, up 1%. You know, there's kind of talk about, is this trying to tell us something? I wouldn't make too much out of it. It's a light volume holiday session. So, you know, just take it at face value, take it with a grain of salt here. But pattern wise, it's not terrible. Back above 2,000, and you know, you get through this here, then you can go to 2050. So gold holding up and acting well. Silver up just under 1%. That pattern is okay. If that consolidates more, it can go higher. So silver looking good here. Platinum also looking really good. Missed that move at the bottom here, but I'm waiting for a retrace on that. And then palladium here, that may have a macro low end. So look at this weekly, that volume there. You get above that red bar on a weekly close, especially if you paint a tail candle on the monthly, which it's about to do on volume. It looks very interesting. We got a week left, so there's room for this to continue rallying and print even more volume up there. So keep an eye on that for palladium. But I gave this level out in like June, so I said if we get down there, that's kind of where, you know, that's like the slam dunk area, and we pierced that 200 very nicely. Look at that support and nice bounce there. I think this could be a long-term level. All right, copper went to the 200 like we thought. Little doji there. That should have to pull back tomorrow, or at least stall out here. Again, it's a holiday week, so a lot of things can happen. Again, on the weekly, if you're above this tomorrow, or should say Friday, that's a failure. And then, you know, copper could definitely go higher. I wouldn't rule that out. Big picture, I still think this is just a giant bear flag. But, you know, copper's holding up, and, you know, we'll respect the charts. If it tells me to change, I'll change. But right now, into the 200, and it should need to stall out there. So anyways, Bitcoin here. So a lot of stuff going on here. And maybe this is why gold was up. I don't know. But, you know, there was more DOJ stuff. I don't really pay too much attention to it, but Binance getting sued again. But in any case, a little bit of volatility there in Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, you're really just inside of this green, right? So there's nothing really has changed here. You're above the moving averages. You know, you're above this trend line here. I don't see any problems with Bitcoin other than it's just up so much here in a short period of time. But that's kind of how crypto trades, right? We should be used to that by now. But in any case, Bitcoin's hanging in there. You guys know I'm just a little leery of this Bollinger Band there on the monthly. So if it tries to pump up again, it could come back in, but it's holding up. It's not getting rejected hard off of that BB. If it does, then I think it could have some actual downside. But right now, it's hanging in there just fine. So, all right. Lastly, here, so spiders, yeah. So I think Nvidia reports late. So yeah, they're not going to be out for another 15 minutes. So let's not make too much out of it. Yeah, that's definitely not out. All right, so yeah, anyway, so we'll see what we get there with Nvidia earnings. Again, spiders, if we get through this area here, if they float this up, next level is gap fill, and I mean, it's pretty obvious. We'll leave it at that, and then your next level is that double top. But so far, that all-time high trend line is giving us a micro reaction. Again, it's a holiday week, so we're not expecting a big sell-off. We wouldn't expect a big sell-off. If it were any other time, I think this would be we would get a much stronger reaction. But we'll see what we get maybe next week. You know, we pull back in here after just floating around this week. So again, those are levels, those that I'm watching, and I'm gonna wrap up here. Anyways, guys, you guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.